Coming up, we continue our Indigenous in 2024 series with this 7th generation weaver. Plus, we learn about what it takes to become Miss Indian Arizona and see how this organization is working to bring representation to Indigenous artists. Those interviews plus headlines are ahead on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Amidawa Hopa. Thank you for joining us. I am Aaliyah Chavez. In the deserts of the acclaimed Lithium Triangle, the promise of wealth clashes with the age-old traditions of the surrounding Indigenous communities. ICT's Brandolyn Clark has the story.
Nestled in the heart of South America's deserts in what's known as the Lithium Triangle, centuries of tradition are colliding with the pursuit of the future. But in Argentina, Indigenous herder Irene Flores de Cayeta knows her way of life is threatened by the mineral wealth beneath her high desert home.
We
will lose everything. What will we do if we don't have water? If the mines come, we'll lose our culture. We won't be left with anything.
Covering parts of Argentina, Chile, and Bolivia, the triangle contains the largest known lithium reserve on Earth. More than 5 centuries after the Spanish first arrived on these shores in search of riches, the quest for this white gold threatens a new invasion. The mineral is mined by drilling into the aquifer beneath the salt flat. As briny water is removed, fresh groundwater is drawn in and mixed with the salt water. Salt from the evaporation ponds and leftover piles can also seep into the aquifer. De Cayete's town is one of many located near 2 giant salt flats, or salares. For centuries, the Koya and other indigenous peoples have herded sheep and llamas across this arid landscape.
We are guardians of the highlands. We defend our land. We take care of our motherland.
More than 30 companies have applied for mining permits in the area. Now, De Cayete's daughter Vilma wonders whether hers might be the last generation to live this way.
In Argentina,
I know Argentina is very rich in lithium, and that's why everybody is invested in our country, especially from the north.
This region is so rich in resources, rare earth minerals, lithium. The Lithium Triangle is in this region. There are a lot of things that this region has to offer.
But to De Cayete's people, this place is more than just a collection of minerals.
And we are resisting because the water is very important to us.
More than important, the water is sacred. When local lawmakers adopted a new constitution that made it easier for mining companies, thousands of indigenous people marched on the Capitol.
Now they want to sell lithium in the name of clean energy, but at the cost of polluting the salt flats, destroying the Puna, the valleys, Jujui, and poisoning our people.
And there are those, like 30-year-old Elizabeth Mamani, who embrace the economic opportunities that mining can bring.
Our lives changed a lot because before we didn't have enough to eat when we lived in the countryside. Today I'm finishing my home and I have a pickup rental business venture.
But many in Argentina fear the same water depletion occurring in neighboring Chile, where companies have been mining lithium for decades. The Chilean government and native communities are suing the mining companies for drying out the southern part of the Atacama Salt Flats, where indigenous herders had grazed their animals for generations. The biggest players in the region are the U.S.-based Albemarle Corporation and Chilean chemical giant SQM. Albemarle spokesperson Marcelo Valdebenito says mining's impact on the environment has been minimal.
No, this has been like this for millennia.
At this SQM facilities, pumps extract up to 8 bathtubs of salty water per second from the ground, while mist from the evaporation process is carried as far away as Brazil. The resulting lithium deposits will power the batteries used by Tesla and other corporations that promise to help climate change.
Yo creo que vivimos una crisis en la cual tenemos una
We're living through a crisis in which we have big obstacles, but we also have solutions. Lithium represents one of those solutions to electrify transport.
Like the Koya, Sonia Ramos feels that her people, the Atacameños, are being asked to sacrifice their way of life to save the planet others have all but destroyed.
Quizás cuando ya no estemos.
Maybe when we are gone, the territory will be completely conquered and we would have existed like other cultures that disappeared from the planet. We're the last voices that remain in the desert, and that hurts a lot.
Que van quedando en el desierto, y eso duele mucho.
Brandon Clark, ICT News.
The Navajo Nation is suing the Department of the Interior over withheld funds. The Navajo Nation claims unlawful withholding of over $1 million for its contracted forestry management program. The 10-year program aimed at preparing 14,000 acres for timber sales. However, the Navajo Nation proposed 4,000. The Bureau of Indian Affairs cites inadequacy, withholding $500,000. The Navajo Nation argues BIA cannot decline renewal without changes in scope or funding. A new National Health Alliance will hire more doctors for tribal communities. The American Indian Medical Education Strategies Alliance will address physician shortages by advocating and advancing policies on a federal level. Consisting of 24 urban and rural tribal organizations, medical schools, and other health professionals, the Alliance advocates to bring graduate medical education partnerships to tribal health facilities. According to the Indian Health Service, the mortality rate for American Indians is 33% higher than the overall U.S. death rate of all other races. Alliance leader and Oglala Lakota citizen Don Warren emphasized that to promote Native health equity, improved staffing at tribal health facilities is needed. In California, the Pinole City Council recently changed its logo that some felt was problematic. The city's previous seal, dating back to 1965, depicted a Native American man with arms crossed against the backdrop of San Pablo Bay. However, following residents' recommendations to stop using a human mascot, city officials created a new one. The city says it relied on community survey responses and feedback from the Confederated Nations of Lisjan to craft a new seal, instead honoring the East Bay's original inhabitants. Newly classified endangered species and their habitats are now being protected. The Biden administration reinstated a rule last week protecting plants and animals that are newly classified as threatened. The blanket protections were dropped in 2019 under a set of changes to the Endangered Species Act. Since then, specialized plans were made for newly listed endangered species. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will reinstate this decades-old regulation, which may benefit freshwater mussels in Alabama, as well as other species facing a major decline in population. One day, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, Indigenous communities will likely look much different than right now. That's why we're launching a short series called Indigenous in 2024. Here we will interview the changemakers of today about their reflections, observations, and hopes. We start our conversation with Tyler Glasses. He is a 7th-generation weaver and photographer. Tyler, thank you so much for being here and joining us on the ICT Newscast.
Thank you for having me, Aaliyah. It's an honor to be here.
Your sister, Naomi Glasses, is a weaver, and I understand that you taught her some of the skills. So maybe let's start off and reflect on your family's history of weaving.
Well, our family, we say 7 generations, and that's how far we can trace it back through our grandma's stories. Because she said, so many great-grandmothers ago learned to weave at Fort Sumner, and we don't know if there was a weaving family or a weaving matriarch before that, because the one that she can trace it back to is there. So we start there usually, and then from there it's just continued on in our family, and usually it's the mothers and aunties that weave, but our grandmother taught all her kids to weave, including her sons, and then. So like our dad, we're like, you know how to weave? He's like, yeah. Our mom taught all of us. And then, so I picked it up from my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. And then from there, I just like went with it, and like I kept weaving because like our grandma would say, weaving can make a life for you. And so we've taken that and we've figure out different ways we can incorporate weaving into new mediums like that most Navajo weavers don't get to reach at, or most Navajo weavers are just used to weaving at home on the loom, but we wanted to like take those designs out to make them more accessible.
What has been the reaction of other Navajo people who have used weaving traditionally for ceremony or for family outfits, but what has been their reaction seeing your designs now on such a wide and mainstream audience? Is it something that they're really excited about?
It's so wild, like hearing people from the community who are excited for like the designs. We have people say, I went to like the store and bought like the blanket, and because you can buy them at REI's, and then or you can order them off the website, and it's really awesome seeing just community supporting it. Like we have one of our local royalties, she has them and she wears it for like her events and photos and stuff, and then people who order the floor rugs a lot of them are from the Indigenous community, and it's so great to see that support from everyone. And so I'm assuming that they're loving it.
I want to circle back because this series is called Indigenous in 2024. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you, from your observations, what you think the single most struggle is that is impacting Indigenous people in this day and age?
I think a big struggle right now is retaining traditional knowledge and crafts and different mediums like that. But I feel like social media is helping like help young people see, like you see like a kid can see a beadwork artist and be like, oh, I love that, and you know, I want to learn how to do that. Or like a weaver like us, like we do our weavings, and we've had so many young people tell us like, I learned weaving because I saw your weavings, I saw other weavers, and it's just great seeing that. But I feel like that's getting the young people to take up traditional crafts and learn traditional knowledge is a big struggle right now.
And it's really scary because if nobody learns these traditions, they could die. And that's an entire connection to ancestors that came before.
Yes. I feel like that's a big part of it. Like the traditional crafts and traditional knowledge, they all involve stories. Like so for weaving, I consider it like a catalyst for all the Navajo lifeways, like plant knowledge, traditional stories, creation stories, Navajo livestock, like management, caring for the land, because all those things tie into Navajo weaving. And so if Navajo weaving is lost, then all those things are kind of lost. But because the resurgence or the interest in Navajo weaving is picking up so much again, I feel like all those things are growing stronger. Like I know young people who are really getting into spinning wool and weaving their own rugs, but to spin wool, you have to raise your sheep, or you have to have someone who has sheep. So it's really great seeing those things come back.
I want to ask you the flip side of that question, and really that's about what the greatest strengths that Indigenous people have in 2024 in this day and age.
I think the greatest strength of Native people is their resilience and their ability to adapt. So for a long time, we always heard, oh, this is dying out, this is dying out. But I feel like so many young people now are picking up these ways that were considered gone and adapting to the way like we function in this day and age. So social media is a big part of that, of course. Like, you know, we all do it for the gram. Like, people say, oh, do it for the gram. But I feel like social media is really big in helping like young people see these traditional crafts growing, and it's a way of adapting and teaching new ways and storytelling in community. So it's resiliency and adapting is one of the biggest strengths of Native culture.
Being behind the camera, can you maybe talk about what inspires you when you see something and you're like, oh, I have an idea? What is it that is inspiring you?
A lot of time it's just the land. Like we're always out, because like on Navajo you have to drive everywhere. So if you drive everywhere, you kind of just see the land as you're driving, and like you're like, oh, this area is really pretty. I like how these colors look here. And so you try to like a lot of times figure out how you could work that into some like a creative idea, whether it's weaving photos or just a story to tell.
So it sounds like finding the backdrop of your own home and using that as inspiration.
Yeah, like So the land, the animals, all those things inspire us because we spend so much time out on the land. If we're not on the land, we're driving through the land, we're traveling through there, we're going to somewhere that we need to be. So you always see the land, and it's like a daily connection to it.
Well, Tyler, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
The annual Miss Indian Arizona pageant may be a few months away, but it's never too early to learn about the competition. ICT's Ashley Sinclair interviewed 2 former winners and the executive director of Miss Indian Arizona about the competition and what to expect.
The first Miss Indian Arizona pageant began in 1961. Denise Halmer said that the Arizona State Fair director, Charles Garland, approached her and her family at the Arizona State Fair and suggested combining all tribal pageants in a single contest. Almost 65 years later, Miss Indian Arizona continues. The popular saying, "those don't seek to lead, they're called to it," may apply to the story of Miss Laney Lupe, whose original dream was basketball.
I was more into basketball at the time. That was my main focus in trying to get better at it and, practice my craft and perfect it. And then after I got my bachelor's degree, I was like, the pageantry business doesn't sound so bad. And I think giving that voice and that platform to be able to share my story and also just take that leap of faith and kind of join that tradition. So I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Former Miss Sistine Lewis of 2022 to 2023 talked about the expectations asked for the competition.
There's not a whole lot, just that you have to be fully committed to this, that you want to be able to run for this, and that you're 100% sure you're going to put your all into this pageant because it is a state pageant where you're representing not only yourself, but also your family and your community.
With the next Miss Indian Arizona pageant coming up this October, competitors may think, what could this do for me and how would I win? Both ladies answered these questions.
Before this, I was kind of, I kept in my box. I didn't like to step out of my comfort zone. Public speaking wasn't my thing, this title allowed me to do a lot more that I'm not comfortable with. So it reminded me of a quote that I got told in high school is get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I didn't understand it at the time because why would you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and be comfortable with it? That's what I thought. And I guess I still kind of think of that, but I kind of do see that when you do put yourself in uncomfortable situation, it allows you to step outside of yourself and challenge yourself. So it's definitely helped me grow as a public speaker, as a communicator with other people, and as well as the challenges that come with it of the self-doubt that comes with it, thinking that you're not doing enough, or you, the question, the self, yeah, basically the self-doubt of it, and facing those things head on and trying to pep yourself up and be like, you are doing enough. It's what you're doing is enough. What you are going through is going to help you shape you into a better person. So it's definitely helped me, and I feel like through it I've become a stronger person, both as Miss Indian Arizona, but also as just myself. And these are qualities and traits that I'm gonna take with me into the next chapter of my life, even when I relinquish the crown.
I think the biggest thing in this one was how interviews your biggest point setter, so you have to nail your interviews in order to be able to I think place anywhere near up in the top ranking, I would say probably.
However, in good competitive spirit, winning isn't everything, so Lupe and Lewis shared what they're looking forward to seeing in October.
I've definitely been recruiting, and I can't wait to see who will take the challenge, and I'm excited to, help them along their way and make sure that their journey is comfy as possible.
I'm excited to see more girls run. I know we're slowly getting back, like I said, from the normalism of COVID, so I'm really excited to see more different tribes run. I think that's pretty cool to see like the different cultures and backgrounds of the girls.
From ICT News, I'm Ashley Sinclair.
Be on the lookout later this year when the 2024-2025 winner will be announced. Language revitalization is a priority for many tribes across Turtle Island. It's what ties them to their sense of place and identity. Almost 10 million people identify as American Indian or Alaska Native, but only 250,000 speak their Indigenous language. ICT wants to do its part in perpetuating the beauty of these Native languages. That's why we've added a regular feature to our newscast. Today, let's learn Ojibwe from the Red Lake Nation.
Ganabutchwi Minogishiga Noongum. Perhaps today will be a good day. Ganabutchwi Minogishiga Noongum. The word Ganabutch is talking about maybe or perhaps. We is a future tense. Minnow talking about something good. And Gishigad means day. And then our word Noongum is today. Putting it all together. Ganabutchwi Minogishiga Noongum. Perhaps today will be a good day.
At FEMA, a huge part of our mission is to make sure we are preparing the nation for catastrophic events. As extreme weather continues to become more intense and frequent, disaster preparedness has never been more important. Older adults face even greater risks and challenges when it comes to preparing, especially those who live independently, have low income, have disabilities, or live in rural areas. This May, President Biden announced Older Americans Month, reminding us that older Americans are the pillars of our community, and we owe it to them to value their wisdom, celebrate their contributions, and champion their well-being. This September, I'm excited to announce that National Preparedness Month will have a special focus on the older adult population. Through our Ready campaign, FEMA is evolving the way we engage with communities to be more inclusive and impactful than ever before. Today, I ask you to join us in our efforts by finding ways to help prepare the older adults in your network or community. Stay tuned for new tools and resources, but don't wait. Visit ready.gov to get started. Thank you.
From ceramics to paintings, beadwork to crochet, artists of all kinds are getting more attention thanks to an organization highlighting and platforming Indigenous artists. Reporter Rally Belcher talks with the co-founders of Indigenous Made Montana to learn how the organization is working to bring representation to Indigenous artists.
Indigenous Made Montana is an organization which has been working to reduce the burden of entry into the art world for Indigenous artists. They are achieving this through hosting accessible pop-up markets where vendors can sell their work and promote their businesses.
As an Indigenous artist, you realize very quickly that you kind of need to take on a multitude of different hats. You need to take on the business side of it, but also, the accounting side of it. There's so many different things that go into starting a creative art business.
The co-founders started Indigenous Made Montana after they saw a need for a space to specifically prioritize, platform, and promote Indigenous art and voices in their community.
An issue that we experience is feeling tokenized in spaces where we were maybe the only Indigenous person or we were being represented by non-Indigenous people.
Their focus on Indigenous-led advocacy and action is helping to drive the growth of their collaborators' businesses, according to Crow ceramics artist Ivy Bird.
It's affected my business in a tremendous way, I believe. Getting my art out there and bringing a voice to Indigenous people, Indigenous artists in particular.
In the 18 months since its founding on Indigenous Peoples Day in October of 2022, the organization has hosted 89 vendors over 15 events, including seasonal and pop-up markets, according to their publicly available numbers.
So a standard Indigenous Made Montana event will look like a vibrant cultural celebration of Indigenous art. We have a lot of Indigenous artists and makers that are multi-generational and traveling from around the Northwest. So you'll see a lot of community, you'll see a lot of family members and music, food. It's a celebration.
I think the biggest thing is that we're totally capable of organizing for ourselves and putting our own voices out there, telling our stories from our own perspective.
Reporting for the ICT Newscast from the homelands of the Salish and Kalispel people, I'm Rally Belcher with the University of Montana School of Journalism.
That is a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit us at ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.